So we have been discussed about how external environment are actually vitally important for an organizations and what type of external environment that can be looking at, and one of the most and very common things that we can looking at is the past, which is political, economics, social, technological, and each and every single one of them, one of the factors that can actually affect differently into the organizations. Next thing that we're going to look is globalizations, where public relation people who work for global organization will understand the need of communication across the timeline, cultures, language, and different communication delivery system, right? However, even if the organization is local, what it does may have global impact and attract global attentions. What it means is that they're trying to understand how the world works, and we can looking at one of the example that the global or the world are very concerned about is the pollutions. How actually pollution is going to work is that people nowadays trying to reduce the waste, reduce the amount of plastic. They're trying to increasing the awareness of how pollutions can damage to the environments, right? It's those are very concerned about what people or audience or who are concerned about pollutions. The next thing that we are thinking of is that recently we have been raising up awareness of the virus, right? The latest virus are really dangerous, right? We all know that it's very dangerous and that can kill people, right, who have been contacting with the person who carry the virus, right? The virus or things that the person who are touching, right? So we all know that kind of virus is very dangerous and it's causing the global awareness, where what actually is happening is that most of the government, what it can do inside it, they're trying to aware peoples in the different channels, like channels from TV, from newspapers, even texting you. This is how actually public relation can actually do in order to raising awareness about certain issues. And if you are an organization, you have to keep in mind with such an issues is that the virus in here, right? So for example, if you are an organization and you are intended to running an event, and this is going to happen in somewhere now, somewhere right now, where the virus are uncontrollable and it can cause damage. So what we're gonna do? Usually, the government will have an impact directly into you, where we know that any change of the governments can be, or or any kind of legislations can be impact directly into such an event. So if they're publishing a note or the announcement that then any kind of event cannot be held, because that will increase the chance of infection, right? So what public relations can do is that they have to keep in mind of this. What they can do, they have to cancel. Mostly they will cancel the events, because if the event require a lot of people coming to the event in order to creating the successful of the event, and it's been conflict with the legislation or the announcement of the government, so you might have to cancel. The next thing that you have to keep in mind is that you got to control the informations. So let's look at the virus cases. So how you control the information? You have to keep update with the information from the governments. So number one that you have to keep update is how to prevent it. Right? In different brochure, flyers, you have to publish a notice to the employees and even to a customer through a certain notice. The certain notice can be directly from a flyer, banner, announcement, or emails, and so on. Those are the things that are telling you that if you are intended to come to our company, you have to follow certain rules. And the rules are being accepted by the public, which is coming from the government here, is that if you come in here, you have to wash your hand. You got to do is you got to wearing a mask. And also the next thing that you have to do is to do a control over those who have been infected or seem to be infected. Those who have been infected, you have to call directly to the authorities. To solving the case, seem to be effective, they have to stay at home, they have to do whatever the things to keep them away from the public. To prevent the spreading of the virus. Next thing that I can do is to running a program or maybe any kind of new system being applied, which means you will have the temperature check. Whatever customer or the employee coming to work or coming into the area of the business or the organizations. So those is how the global are raising awareness, and inside of it, if you intended to launch a new products or service, this can be cancelled. this can be cancelled if you intended to launch a new product through an event, right? Of course, I didn't mention any kind of thing if you're intended to launching a product through a different channel, for example, newspaper, media, or just providing information through emails or sending by post, right? But if you're using an event, then there's need to be cancelled, and you have to be very aware of those that you have been sponsored. All kind of program, event, game show, and so on, they might be cancelled or might be postponed until we have any kind of notice from the government, right? Those can be happen, and this is how you have to keep in mind of it, right? So this is how globalization is very important for public relations to keep in mind and to react to such issues that arise. So new medias, we also know news media, right? Medias can be internet, television, radio, newspaper, magazine. Media is something that one particular guy who posting a certain information in, and then we have a receiver, which is the audience to looking at it in order to get the information. And we have to keep very in mind between traditional and very modern media, where we have to take into account that youngster people are turning away from traditional media format, such as broadcast or newspaper, and usually they will do is to accessing any online sources from newspaper, newsletters, any kind of like social media, Facebook, Twitters, Instagrams. So this is where public relation practitioners need to adapt at working with the discrete public who may share little in common with each. So next thing we're coming to task environments. We have a different linkage inside of certain organizations. We can have a enabling linkage where we are linking directly to stockholder, internal and state legislators, government regulators, board director, and community leaders. This is where they, like I say, it can allow you to be exist because those they have power and resources. Next thing, we have a functional linkage where we have input and output, where input is the employees, suppliers, output can be consumer, industrial purchaser, user, and so on. This is where they're providing some kind of input to an organization and consume its output, which is materials, human resource, land, and so on. The output can be a product, can be, for example, milk, a TV, phone, and so on. We have normative, usually pair organizations, and we have disputed linkage, is those who have no formal relationship with the organization but may take an interest in it. We know that all kind of, like, for example, students, media is one of the diffused linkage. For example, if you are mainly focusing on business and economics, let's say you are a financial company that providing any kind of financial solution, most of the media that they focus directly is the financial newspaper, and you're connecting directly to them. But however, other media such as marketing media, maybe human resource media, or maybe tabloid papers, they can be attractive to your news or information, and they try into getting the information, more and more information from your company. Then we have internal environments. With internal environment, we have a sector side of organization, culture of organizations. So we looking at sectors. Sector, it depends on where the organization are actually in the business. For example, if you are car manufacturers, and the sector would be mobiles, right? Automobiles, right? So it depends on the sector. Practitioner need to change fast or quick or maintain the activities. Which means wherever the thing is changing within your sector, you have to change and you have to adapt directly and being proactive with such a change. And they are involved in dealing with a certain stakeholder, for example, government bodies. So next thing would be the size of the business. The size of business can be affected to public relations, where some small, usually they will have multi-function, where they are putting public relation directly into marketing departments, or they can outsourcing public relation department. And big business and department, the department will take place in some task. You also know that, right? Like multinational company, they will have different tasks to be taken care of, where they study about cultures, how the countries are adapt. So advising to the marketing department, that's suitable with such cultures. Next things is the cultures. Is the most significant influence in determining how PR function within an organization. So it's the nature of the business. And there will be a non-value belief that can be expressed through vision, mission, and core values. Even sometimes they were looking at the level of communications. Then we will discuss it later on. So next thing, if we're looking at, is the state of the organization development, is where we have to utilize different activities in order to suit with different state of an organization and organizations. So different stage to execute different strategies or different activities for the best information flow. Usually we have 4 stages. We have startup, we have growth, we have maturities, and we have decline. There are different terms they can use, but usually they will have 4 stages. So what do we have? So in here is a table of how the public relation activity may be structured at various stages of the organizational life cycle. So we're looking at different stage where we have different example of public relation activities, and usually they have a function of it, which is staffing. Right? So usually, for example, if you start off, what public relation activity they can do is all kind of things, and the main part of them is trying to do as a marketing duties. But however, moving on, we are looking at the function of public relation in terms of communications and consultancy. But however, in the decline stage, we have tons of communication, because usually they will involve with crisis. In here, they will involve with crisis. So we have crisis management. Maybe it's because of merger and acquisition due to a certain recession of the economics. We can merge to new companies, or we can buy over with the new companies, and we have different activities to doing so. So usually what we can do is to become a specialty consultancy. So startup stage is the new launch company entering a new market. They're trying to communicate, is connecting with target consumers, strengthen internal communication and loyalties, employees. Branding, internal communication, driving with the same objective. Growth state, trying to developing, which means you are in developing. You start to actually gaining some profit. You start to have loyalty, customer, and the system are actually work smoothly. So somewhere around development stage, consumers start to have brand awareness. They start to knowing your company, what you are selling, what's the values of it. Communication techniques, what they're using it to communicating with shareholder through news release or press release, conference, maybe through email, briefing. Promote an organization brand, expand market through different segments, and clarify employee concern. Maturity is where you start to become stable and maintain a certain number of consumers. So communication is trying to raising even more awareness, attract more investor. There can be a normal investor, and there can be a ethical investor where they look directly on how you contribute directly into the society, and those society can be seen as CSR, corporate social responsibilities. So what we at maturity stage is where we try to prevent violating any laws, transparency related to audit assurance and financial clarification. Trying to violating any law, one of them is trying to pay tax. Trying to pay tax on time and in the correct amount. So usually they will research for future trend and new target consumer. Decline stage is so what we can call the recession period, and crisis may happen during this state. So communication technique using holding, keeping talent employees, because where is you may suffering from the loss and people are start to lose and can believe in an organizations, and what you're going to do is trying to keep the employee to stay and the consumer retention, and strengthen communication along the organization structure, which means trying to give the information at one piece. The information should be informal way, and persuade more reputation consumer perspective. Those are things. So we coming to a traditional communication approach. Usually we have 4 stages. We have research, planning, communicate, appraise. Research in here, we have to research for all kind of internal and external environment. For example, market segmentations. How is the people actually react to the channel? For example, if you are aged at 18 and 25, and you are main communication channel is through newspaper, with very traditional, and you have to do another research whether is it still suitable with that kind of age, or do we have to change anything, or do we have any kind of other approach that if we're sending information that people from this age can be react to it and actually trying to interact with the information you are posting or publish. Planning is where you start to planning different channel, different program that you need it in order to improve your brand awareness. Communicate is start to execute or start to do it. You do it with the channel have been approved from the management level, and we appraise here is trying to feedback, trying to see whether is it still those kind of things is still effective or not? Is it effective? Is it efficient? And what is the cost of it? And how consumer are actually trying to, consumer or audience react to it. What is the problem with this? Problems with this, with communications, and do we solve it or not? If not, then how can we solving it, and why do we have to solving it? Right, those are traditional communication approach. This is how you're doing it. This is how communication model is going to happen, is where you are sender. Let's say you are company A and you're working as a PR specialist, and you are the sender, which means you have different message to be sent, right? This is the channel that you have to be using. For example, you can use TV, radios, newspapers, any social network. Those are channels. Receivers is actually the audience, your target audience, your existing and target audience. So this is where they are sending you a feedback, which means how do they react into it. The noise is those who are making the communication become problems, or if this noise is making the information being sent is not in fully formed. And what you can do is you have to keep in mind with the noise here and trying to utilizing it and react directly into it, react to it, in order to provide fully information. Which means this one, if you intended to deliver in full, and when this guy is receiving, they have to receive exactly the same information. Right. So 5 steps, you have 5 steps to acquiring a new ideas. You have awareness, is where researcher to understand the target demographic and potential adopters. Need to know where something is new, your interest, create interest among the adopter through define the good services, trial, let them try. Evaluation, use feedback, adoption. If those 4 is successful implement, consumer might share the positive feedback. This is where if you are intended to launching a new product or services or any kind of ideas to the public. So this is where you can use to actually publish different information in order to raising awareness of company from the audience. So we have diffusion theories. This is how diffusion theories work. So by communicating through different channel A, channel B, channel C. This is an individual A, or is it a group that you have to be sending through the different channels? And the diffusing is trying to tailor making those information in order to each and every single individual that will get an information. And by the long run, those individuals in here will communicate with each other. They will communicate with each other. It can be word of mouth. It can be through social network. Right. So if let's say if you are publishing a new product and you're sending directly to the A has an impact and he or she will share directly on his social network. That will cause an interesting of this guy here, this guy D here. And what the guy can do is he keeps sharing the information all over his social network, or he can match with these guys over here and debate things with him, or communicating or interacting with him with the information that C have been received, right? So the role of it. So there are two roles as the managers. You are plan and manage public relation program, advise managers, make communication policy decision, and oversee the implements. The technicians, I call them the doers, because what they do is they are not involved in organizational decision making, but implement public relation programs, for example, press release, events, web content, right? And usually they are not really involved into research and evaluations, right? So next thing, we have a public relation task is through marketing communication, management communication, and organization communications. And we're looking at management communication is the communication by management aimed to developing a shared vision, establishing and maintaining trust in the leadership, managing change, empowering and motivating employees. Marketing communication is aimed to support the sales of goods or services, and including advertising, promotion, direct mail, personal sellings, online mobile marketings. And finally is the organization communications, is where is the host of communications activity, usually at corporate levels, and not all of which will be necessarily located in public relations department, which include public affairs, environmental communication, investor relations, labor market communication, corporate advertising, internal communications. Right. So here is the function structure of a public relations. So we break down into different functions, where we have internal communication, they're in charge of how the communication within the company is going to work. Public affair, investor relation, community relation, connecting with any kind of like charities, marketing communication, and business to business. Or we can break them into tasks, which means each and every single task in here carry out one task, and they have to keep in mind with the relationship. For example, event and exhibition, where they will have to keep in mind or taking care of the account. For example, space rentals, exhibitions, line, sound and line, or any kind of rentals or suppliers, press office, where they connecting directly into press, writing press release. New media is from sharing different media, for example, like TV show, game shows. They're connecting with it, trying to go and get contract if they intended to do sponsorship. That's it. That is the end of chapter 1 of Introduction of Public Relations.